Chris Hensley is a registered representative of Cambridge Investment Research, Inc., a broker-dealer member of FINRA SIPC, investment advisor representative of Cambridge Investment Research Advisors, Inc., a registered investment advisor. Cambridge and Houston First Financial Group are not affiliated.
Many families will spend tens of thousands of dollars putting their children through school. Affording college is a concern for most of us. If you like to educate your families about the opportunity to pay for college using alternative options such as scholarships, then you will be very intrigued to find out more about what our guest today, Crystal Olivarria, has to say. She is the founder and CEO of CareerConversationalist.com, and she works with children and teenagers to find out what their passion is in life and what careers they may end up doing. And so we'll do kind of a deep dive into learning a little bit about her experience of getting her a good portion of her school paid for through college scholarships. But then we'll also do a deep dive into what career coaching for teenagers or children looks like. How early is too early? Please stay tuned. Keep listening. Crystal will be joining us very, very shortly to discuss this topic. But if you're a longtime listener, you know that we always reserve the first few minutes of the show just to tell you a little bit about what's going on in the financial literacy space here in Houston. Now, we do have Houston Money Week. Even though we're not in 2018 yet, we are starting to kind of get that ramped up and get that started. Houston Money Week is a financial literacy event that used to take place during 1 week, but it is so big that now it takes up the entire month of April. And so we're talking about Financial Literacy Month, really, in April of 2018, but we have already gotten started. Last year, being part of the Houston Money Week leadership team, I brought on different organizations. We work with nonprofits, we work with for-profits, banks, local city government officials, corporations, anybody who is in line with our mission to get financial literacy out to low, moderate income, really anybody who needs financial literacy free at no charge. And so we are working on Houston Money Week. We've already got it started, and we will start bringing on a partner from Houston Money Week at least once a month starting in November. So you can look forward to next month. At least one Friday, we're going to have a partner, and we'll start introducing them to you the closer that we get to April of 2018. One more event that we have coming up tomorrow, I am going to be doing a ORP, that's optional retirement program for upper education. So this is going to be UT Healthcare. It's going to be University of Houston. It's going to be Houston Community College. And if they are participating in the optional retirement plan, we're going to do kind of a deep dive into that. And then also talk about some retirement roadblocks. So things that people tend to forget when it comes to retirement, whether it's healthcare expenses, things such as Medicare, retiree healthcare, whether it's Social Security, how to make decisions around your Social Security. We're going to make sure to include that and talk about those roadblocks that people forget when it comes to retirement. That's going to be tomorrow at 10:15. It is at the Youngman Neighborhood Library. It is free and open to the public, but it's specifically focused for people who are part of the optional retirement program through this state. With that, let's go ahead and get our guest on the line here. Crystal, are you there?
Yes, I'm here.
Excellent. Well, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you for having me. It's a pleasure.
Absolutely. So I always like to share a little bit about you at the opening of the show so listeners can get to know you just a little bit better. Now, you are the founder and CEO of Career Conversationalist. And it says here that the program, you're committed to helping your child select a relevant career that is fun, fulfilling, and financially rewarding. That sounds good for everybody. It says, if you are looking for help to assist your child in selecting a good school with a good program, get fully funded, and that's one of the things we were talking about earlier, is that you got a good portion of your school paid through scholarships, getting an internship while in college, graduating, and having a job position lined up by the time he or she graduates, then you are in the right place. So definitely those are things that we want to learn a little bit more about. Can you tell us something about yourself outside of that bio so we can get to know you just a little bit better?
Yes. So my grandparents were immigrants to this country and worked really hard. And I realized that you could either work really hard in the fields or you could work really hard at your education to get ahead. And I decided I wanted to go for the education.
Absolutely, absolutely. Tell us a little bit about Career Conversationalists and how did that get started and why did you start that company?
It started off with me focusing on helping families afford college. And I had a college professor who had wrote my letters of recommendation when I was applying for scholarships. And he was just really encouraging me to share my story with other students and other families, just to show that it was possible. I think a lot of times kids hear it, but sometimes they want to see it. They want to see someone doing it. And so I started blogging part-time, and I had a parent come up to me and say, Crystal, I know college is important. I know it's an investment. I've been saving since I found out I was pregnant. I have $100,000 in savings for my kid, and my biggest concern isn't affording college. It's how do I make sure that my child selects a relevant career that'll utilize his talents and abilities? Because from her standpoint, her child's her whole life, and she couldn't think of anything worse than him having to get a job he hates just to pay the bills month by month.
Well, so one of the things that they asked you to do was share your story with others. That professor that saw that, and maybe that's something you could do with us. I'm interested in you had a bulk of your college paid for in scholarships and stuff. Can you tell us a little bit about your story?
Yeah, absolutely. So I went to college and I didn't know anything about scholarships or grants or anything. And we had someone on campus, like we had a career center. And every time I saw the person who operates that, her name was Lupe, she'd always say, Crystal, there's money out there. Just apply, just apply. I didn't know how to apply. I didn't know what to look for. And none of that mattered. She was installing in me the belief every time I saw her, just go for it. Don't make mistakes, but just go for it. And I did. I made a lot of mistakes. I've learned from it, and that's one of the reasons why I'm happy to talk to families and share about like what I learned, because I'm really shortening that learning curve for you. This way you don't have to make all the mistakes that I made.
Well, and that's the idea of scholarships. I know when I work with families that are looking for college planning needs and college funding as a financial advisor, scholarships are one of those things that you can't necessarily guarantee that you're going to get. There's a small bucket out there, but I like the idea you said go for it, because if you never try, you're never going to get. And so that's in fact, you were able to get over $70,000 from grants, which grants you don't have to pay back, so that's good.
Yep, absolutely.
And scholarships. Tell us a little bit about that experience.
Yeah, so you're absolutely right. I think a lot of people shy away from applying because they want the guaranteed source. And what I really learned is that you have to ask better questions, especially when it comes to the grants. There tends to be a lot more paperwork for the grants. And it was just really working with my mom and having her ask her accountant some really good questions and saying, okay, well, we know these grants we can apply for, but we make too much money. So, maybe is there a way that we can move and shift some money around, like pre-tax dollars, after-tax dollars? And the conversation went in that direction. And my mom figured out that there was things that she could do on her end so that I could qualify for more grants. And then there was things that I could do on my end as a child where I could qualify for scholarships.
So that what I hear there that I really like is that you did not give up, because often I'll have a parent who maybe is a high-income earner or even just a moderate-income earner, and they say, well, I'm making too much to receive financial aid, or I'm making too much to get a scholarship, and they'll just not even go down that path. And there are so many different avenues out there for them to pursue, that you guys being proactive, getting an accountant on board to be able to maybe shift some stuff around to be able to open up to some of these opportunities. I love to hear that. Well, let's kind of shift a little bit, because one of the things that you've done now with Career Conversationalist is work with kids and trying to help them learn what they want to do. Tell us a little bit about what Career Conversationalist is all about.
Absolutely. So one of the things that I found is that a lot of kids don't apply to scholarships because, one, they have a belief system that someone they don't know isn't going to give them a lot of money, $1,000. And so for me, it's a great opportunity to help kids learn skill sets that aren't being taught in school and really change their mindset about it's an investment. Someone in the community out there wants to invest in young people, and you need to demonstrate what value you have, what commitment you have, what are your career goals and options. And that's usually the largest struggle kids have when applying for scholarships, is the scholarship essay where they ask them, what are your career goals? What do you hope to accomplish? Or where do you want to be in 10 years? And regardless of whether a child's applying for scholarships or not, that's important that a child has a vision for their own future. And so the Career Conversationalist is really about creating an ongoing conversation to help that child have that vision and create a safe environment so they can explore different career options. What are their talents and abilities? What are the different options? There's different types of college degrees. Do they go to a technical school? Do they go to a four-year school? Do they want to dream and get a degree beyond a bachelor's? And so it's really about how do you create a safe environment, because kids do want to have these conversations. And I think too many parents are relying on the high school guidance counselors, and in the average high school guidance counselor in America has 300 students. So your child's not getting that one-on-one time that they need. And this is important because these decisions are going to affect the next 10, 20, 30, 40 plus years of their life. And that's really what it's about. It's about how do you create an environment and then keep it ongoing so that your child continues to rise to the next level.
So I love what you just said there, because you didn't say, here's what we're going to force the kid to do. You talked about what are their options, what are the things that they like, and that kids really do want to have these conversations about these things. As I have a 7-year-old, so one of the things that pops into my head is, how early is too early to start these conversations?
That's a great question. So I start working with kids in junior high just because I find it's a good transition period. When kids move to elementary school, they're used to having one teacher. And then when they move into junior high, they have multiple teachers, and it's setting them up for high school. So they're starting to think in terms of what's high school going to be like. It's a great transition period. But I find that I attract a lot of parents that have kids that are even as young as 3 and 4 years old. And it's interesting because I had a conversation with a parent who's like, I asked my daughter what she wants to be when she grows up, and she wants to ride horses. And so I was asking the mom about this, and she's like, I'll just keep waiting until my daughter picks a realistic career. And I was telling her, the challenge is, right now that your daughter's 4 years old and she wants to talk about these things she wants to do, that's good because she's engaging in a conversation about careers. You want to keep that going. Because what happens is by the time they get to a teenager, oftentimes kids, they might hang out with their friends and they give you these 1 or 2 word answers. Like, I'm cool, I'm good, that's fine, whatever. And then it's really hard to have that conversation. So even when a kid's little, just keep asking them questions like, what do you like about horses? Or, start thinking about what are the different industries that have horses in it, and just keep that conversation going. And it's easier to pivot to something else later on than it is to go ahead and try and start it.
That's good to hear. My son, when we ask him, what do you want to do? He's got about 5 or 6 things he wants to do. So, and we're like, all right, we just let him go on it. But definitely that conversation has started. He's told us this is what this is what I want to do. So you offer for people who are interested in finding out more. You have kind of a report called 7 Ways to Help Your Child Select a Relevant Career. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yes, it was created just because there was a need for it. A lot of parents would say, well, I tried to ask my kid what they want to do, and they either, A, don't know, or they keep changing their mind every single week. And the parent kind of freaks out because they're like, okay, I'm going to spend thousands of dollars, and they don't know what they want to do. And so just really helping parents understand, like, it's healthy for your child to explore different career options. That's something you want them to do, because the more time they spend thinking about what they want to do, the more sure they're going to be that that's a good decision and a fit for them. So the guide was really created for the parents to say, here's an outline of different types of questions and different ways you can have that conversation to either start it or continue it, to really make sure that your child's exploring careers on a deeper level. And one of the things I find is when kids say they want to do something, a lot of times it's because they've seen it on TV, on the internet, they've seen the Hollywood version of what does a doctor do or a forensic scientist do, and they get these preconceived notations in their head about what that career is, and they start making judgments based on that, rather than really exploring what are all the different things you can do with that single degree or all the different types of jobs within that industry. And so the gift was really created as a guide to help parents have that ongoing conversation in a really fun way.
I love that, the idea that you know, you see one career and it's kind of the Hollywood version of what it actually is, and going deeper and really exploring that. Even for adults, that's a good thing to do as well, because
absolutely,
you know, you thought one thing, you got this, but so now if you are driving, I'm going to ask you how they can get a copy of this report, and they can either write it down now, but if you're driving, we are going to give that information again at the end, and it's also going to be on the podcast notes. But where do they go to get a copy of this?
7waystohelp.com.
Okay, so 7waystohelp.com, and they can get access to this report that will help them with those conversations. Really just kind of give them some tips as to how to approach this. Can you share a little bit of kind of your best tips about having this conversation with kids?
Yes, make it fun. What I find is that a lot of kids, they're overloaded with school. They're encouraged to go to all these social activities, to be leadership, going into AP classes and honor classes. And a lot of times kids come home, and sometimes parents are so busy cooking dinner, getting off work, they're tired, and they forget to ask their child, how was your day at school today? And really, that's where your child develops their confidence in being able to talk about themselves and their struggles and their disappointments and celebrating their wins. And so a career conversation just makes it a little bit, that conversation, richer and deeper, because then it helps your child think forward about their future, and it gets them excited. So when they do have a down day, they're like, oh, yeah, I have this vision of what I'm working towards. You know, not every day is going to be this glorious, fun day with rainbows and sunshine. It's really about helping the child understand, like, it's a roller coaster ride, and let's just have fun with it. Kids want to have fun. Parents want to have fun, so let's have fun as a family.
So I like that, the idea of them talking about it, really having a conversation about it. Even the name of your company, Career Conversationalist. If you think about when people go in for job interviews, that, you know, there's the resume, the written part, but really a lot of it boils down to being able to express yourself verbally in front of somebody. And so if you are starting that conversation early, that sounds like a very positive thing. You also said to get them excited about it, you know, focus on what their vision is, things that they like, really get them hyped up about it there.
Yeah, absolutely.
What other tips could you give parents that are trying to be supportive of the children's choices?
Challenge your child. Mm-hmm. A lot of children are just used to being told what to do. Like, you need to go to this program, you need to do this homework assignment, this is due when, here, and why. And really challenge your child and be like, so what have you done since last time we talked? Or what have you done since last week? Or did you follow up with this person you said you were going to talk to? And kids want that because it shows them that you really care and that you're really concerned. Just do it from a loving approach, like, I'm concerned and I really want you to be successful, so what have you done? and just be firm with them. And kids will respect you for that.
So I like that because it's kind of setting boundaries where if you've had the conversation but they're not maybe following through, you're checking back, just holding them to the expectations there, and they having that structure and that boundary sounds like a good thing during this process of them finding that. What can you tell us about one of the things that you talk about is hanging out in workplace environments, so I guess getting them exposed to the industries. What can you tell us about that?
Great point. So a lot of the jobs are constantly changing, and so the way a job may have been 10, 20 years from now isn't the way it's going to be right now. And I actually have a great quick story I want to share. I was listening to your episode 171, Careers to Make a Difference, with Kyle Kinsey.
Oh, yes.
And I thought you made a great comment because during the conversation you were talking about career fatigue and how many people are losing their passion because they're being asked to do more with less. And a great example is I have a client who was interested in becoming a physical therapist. And so when he would go in, because his sister was injured, and so they were having a conversation with the physical therapist to talk about the career, it was interesting because the physical therapist was talking about how much the industry had changed within 20 years because of all the medical insurance billing practices that had changed, and how it used to be a fun career to be focused on rehabilitation of his clients. But then because of all the industry changes, he's like, now I can't offer my clients the services they need. A lot of the insurances had changed their policies, so the policies weren't covering as many types of services, and now he spent more time with the paperwork than he did his clients. And that's the career conversation that I encourage, because now people are going to make smarter decisions about, is that a career field I want to go into, or how has it changed? And it's getting people out of their heads with these preconceived ideas of this is what it is, to find out what changes are going on. And then everybody feels appreciated, because then they're like, the family's making better decisions. And then the actual physical therapist feels good because he's passing on his knowledge and his wisdom about, yes, I do want to encourage you into the field, but be aware of these challenges, and this is what you're going to face.
I love that. Yeah, that's very true. The idea, you start doing one thing and it kind of morphs into something else that maybe that's not either your strong suit or something you don't enjoy doing. The paperwork, that's one of those that comes up pretty often. Well, how do you have any creative ways to approach the people who have those fields? So if you're wanting to either do an internship or maybe kind of just shadow somebody for a day or something like that, do you have any tips of how either the child or the parent would approach the person?
Absolutely. Yeah, just start off with a friendly conversation. I find a great way to get to know someone is to ask them about how their day at their job was, and a lot of people are excited to talk. People like to talk about themselves. And once they're talking about their, what do you do is a common question, so people are pretty open to that. And just say, that's interesting, could you tell me more? And just kind of let that conversation naturally flow, and then just continue to ask questions. This is an interesting conversation. I've been thinking about, going into that career field. Can I take you out for a cup of coffee and ask you some more questions? Or, is now a good time? And just show that person that you respect their time, that you want to honor them for their experience, and just be genuine in saying, this is where I'm at, this is where I'm thinking, I would love to know what you like about it, what don't you like about it, what kind of degrees did you need, how much experience did you need, what did it take to get to where you are, and what kind of advice do you have for someone who wants to become what you are.
So I love that, because that's not as formal as an internship or going into the office, but you mentioned some of the things like just basic what do you do, asking questions and letting them kind of talk about what they do, but then ask, maybe getting a cup of coffee so that you can ask them some more questions specifically focused about their career, and then being authentic and being genuine about it. I think a lot of times people are open to helping and teaching people about what they do. there's no, the idea of buying a cup of coffee for somebody, who's going to say no to that?
And you want me to talk about myself too? Like, this is wonderful.
Exactly. Well, great. I think that's definitely good advice. Have you had experiences where the college age kids that you've worked with who've done the internships that were positive that you might be able to share with us?
Oh, absolutely. So I had 2 kids recently for the summer. They had applied to internships, and their biggest challenge was the interview because, one, they didn't know how to dress when, especially with college girls, and they're asking their friends and their peers, like, oh, what should I wear to an interview? I need to dress nice. Oftentimes their friends will give them advice, so they dress cutesy, like they're going on a date rather than being professional.
Right.
And then also, one of the biggest challenges they have is how do they talk about themselves? So doing some role playing and help them talking about themselves and feeling comfortable and confident. And they both ended up getting the internship, which is amazing. And it was a 10-week paid internship that had a stipend. It included money for travel, food, lodge, fun money. And they got to do cool things like learn how to drive a boat. And they both had a mentor that helped them design their own experiments. They're both marine majors, marine science. So they got to be out on the ocean in the boats, measuring fish, doing their different experiments. And then they were so happy with them, they invited them to create a poster and took them to Salt Lake City. And they're actually in a conference this weekend presenting their findings from what they had done over the summer. And it's amazing because now they're at a point where they have professionals coming to them when they present. They're commenting on their poster and the research and what they did, and they're starting to offer more opportunities and more resources, and it really helps them because now they're like, okay, there's so many things we can do in a marine science with that degree, but now they get to see different people in that major and get to talk to them and offer them out to coffee to really learn more about their options from people who are in the field. They're networking, and I feel really confident that they're going to be able to get a job really easily because they're networking and they're doing all of these internships. They're building up these incredible letters of recommendation that they can ask from people who are credible, who are already within their industry. And that's just really impressive.
Absolutely. Everything you just said, I would definitely piggyback on that. The idea that they're networking with somebody in the field that they ultimately want to be in. You don't know whether it's your professor, whether it's that internship or people that you meet along the way where your next job's coming from. So that's super important. Some of the things that, first of all, the idea of an internship where you're learning, but you're also getting paid if there's a stipend involved. This person was able to travel and they got to go to Salt Lake City. Those are all really, really great things that are kind of launching them into that career. But in order for them to get there, they had to do some preparation. You talked about, the way that they dressed when they went in for the interview, and even as specific as doing a role play about how they talk about themselves before they sat down in front of what they call real life interview. They did the role play. If they were going to make mistakes, they did the mistakes prior to walking into the actual live interview. So all of these things that you just said are fantastic advice for people who are looking to do something like this. My experience with internships is it's a two-way street. The college graduate or the recent college person is bringing stuff to you because there's technology. There's things that you can learn as the professional from the intern, and then vice versa. They're learning from you. So the mentoring, really, really just a good thing. We are right here at the end of the show, so we could go on and on. But what have I forgot to ask you that you want our listeners to know?
Great question. I would just say that be confident in yourself as a parent. I know there's a lot of things out there that create doubt as far as are you doing a good job? And there's a lot of parent guilt because you come home tired from work and you feel like this isn't what I really want to do with my free time. Yes, I want to be there for my child, but I don't want to bear all the weight on my shoulders. And that's why I would say that it's really smart to think about investing in a career coach, whether it's now, soon, or in the near future. And just know that it's a really good return on your investment, not just from a monetary standpoint, but it's really about helping your child develop their confidence and their ability and giving them the tools and creating that safe environment so they can practice developing these social skills like talking about themselves in a really safe environment.
Well, Crystal, thank you so much. We're right here at the end of the show. For listeners who'd like to find out more about Crystal, you can visit her website, careerconversationalist.com. She did mention that free report earlier, and that is 7waystohelp.com. Crystal, again, thank you so much.
Thank you. It was an absolute pleasure.
And you have been listening to KPFT Houston.
Thanks for listening to today's episode of Money Matters Podcast. If you enjoyed the show, visit us on the web at www.moneymatterspodcast.com. Drop us a line on SpeakPipe on the right-hand corner. It will receive any voicemails, questions, thoughts, concerns that you have about the show. In addition to this, we recently launched a Patreon campaign. Click on the Donate Now tab to hit the tip jar and find out what Patreon's campaign is all about.